Welcome to Jung at Harp, episode number 196, Bring the Music. I'm Kathleen Wiley, a Jungian psychoanalyst in North Carolina, and I am here with Deborah Henson-Conant. She is a composer, a performer, an educator, a mentor. We both play the harp, and that's why we call this Jung at Harp. We come together almost weekly to explore a question. We don't start with answers, but we start with a question that we then explore through the art of conversation with each other and with you if you're joining us live. Hopefully your platform will allow you to put in comments that we will then be able to see, and your own involvement and presence and music that you're bringing will be a part of our dialogue and discovery and exploration. And don't forget to check us out on all of your favorite podcast platforms because we are there. We are there. And I'm sure if you listen, there's some benefit to our being found more regularly. So help us be found. so, Deborah, do you want to start us off here talking about Bring the Music and where you're at, what your thought process was as we came together?
Yeah, my thought process was I was thinking this morning about, what gives me serenity in this or peace in this season. And I was thinking that for me, it was three things, which was having a purpose or having a job to do. I think I've always thought of it as having a job to do, being a citizen, having a place, being a citizen, having a job, and having a story to tell, having a story to tell, and then a way to tell that story with music. And that's sort of my whole life, having those three things, a sense of belonging in some kind of community or having some purpose there, and a story that's moving me or that I'm able to speak with, and the music that helped me tell that story. And one of the reasons that I was, so that just came up this morning, but I'm in the middle of a project in which I've just completed, or will complete tomorrow, a fake book. Now, the fake book's actually already been out, but we've still been editing it and stuff like that. And a fake book is a book of music that only has the bare bones of the music. So all the notes aren't there. You actually put them in yourself. And I'm also going to be teaching people how to use it. And it gives huge access to music quickly. And I've avoided creating something like this for years, even though I'm constantly telling the people that I teach, get a fake book, let's work with a fake book. And the reason it's important to me is that when I was a kid, I had two really important music lessons from my mom. One was learning how to play the ukulele, which shifted me from being just a listener who always had to ask for somebody else to play for me, to being the person who could bring the music, both for myself and for others. And then when I was 10, because I was so interested in music, my parents were like, "Oh, give her music lessons." And so there was a music teacher up the street. They sent me to the music teacher. She was going to teach me how to read music, and she showed me the music to read, and I didn't like it, and I didn't understand. And I said, "Didn't anybody else ever play this?" And she was like, "Yes, people played this." And I was like, "Didn't they do it well?" And she was like, "Yes, they did a great job." And then I was like, "Well, why do you need me to do it? Like, I don't get it." And so she sent me home. And when I went home, I said to my mother, I don't want to do that. Can you just tell me how music works? Mm-hmm. And she was like, "Okay." I think I told this story last week, but it's been very much on my mind in creating this fake book. She said, "Yeah, okay, I'll teach you how it works. What do you want to play?" And I was like, "I want to play April Love because I want to sing like Pat Boone." And she was like, "Okay, so here's how the music goes. Ignore all this stuff that you can't read. You know how the melody goes. Here's the words. See this big letter up above here? That tells you what chord it is. And here's how you build a chord. It's called a 1, a 3, and a 5. I think she was telling me all she knew about music. This was it. This is all she knew. And she was like, "This is how it works. And then you build a chord like this, and that's it." And like a couple days later, I was like, "Yeah, but what's this thing? It says 7 on it." And she said, "Okay, yeah, well then you add, 1, then you skip 1, and then it's the third one, and then you skip 1 and 5, and then you skip 1, and then you put the 7 in." And I was like, "Okay." And that was it. That was all I needed. And then it's like, "Okay, go away. I've got to know how to do this. And I've been telling this story a lot lately because it's really in my mind, because it was such a shift between the world in which I did not have a way in to playing anything other than like tinkle. I just didn't know what to do. And there was this this line that was very short. It was like a 10-minute line between when I did not know how to decipher or didn't understand the basic system that was at work, and then the moment afterwards in which I understood the basic system. Now, could I play sophisticated chords? No, I couldn't, but I understood the system. And by creating this fake book that I created, which was very tedious, taking like 50 plus Christmas, Advent, Hanukkah songs and, simplifying them to the simplest way I could, putting them all in the key of C so that, there's the lowest bar to entry. Mm-hmm. What is the lowest bar to entry for people, for harpists, and you can do it on a keyboard too, to go from, gee, I wish I could play, to, oh, I can play that song. Mm-hmm. And that was the lowest bar to make this book. And then I'm going to do a workshop in about a week just to make sure people know how to use it. So what am I saying here, Kathleen? That's the difference between it was such an important story to me. And as I started telling the story more and more, I began to understand how to then let others into having that experience in their life. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Versus just telling them about me having an experience. Okay, yeah, great. Okay, you had the experience. How do I have it? Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing that can let you have that. And then you start having a story that you can tell about when you made that leap from not being able to understanding the system or how it works.
Yeah, you know what? As you were talking, I thought, wouldn't it be such a different impact on us if we thought about the sheet music as the musical notation versus the music? Because that's part of our language and our communication. Right. That sets up this mix-up. We think the music is the sheet of paper you have to stick to, whereas the music is the felt experience of what you're expressing that comes from within. I mean, I think that's the whole, to me, the bottom line, the fundamental of bringing the music is you're expressing what it is that you're experiencing internally via the language of music. And that's a very different idea, relationship. It evokes a very different felt sense in me when I think about sharing my music and playing my harp for other people than the idea that if I bring the music, I've got to do it exactly like it's written on this sheet of paper. So that's what occurred to me. And your mother gave you that gift, and you'd already had grown up in the household with her, and your aunt, I guess, was there at that point too. You already had an experience of music. And so when you went to this teacher and she pulls out the musical notation, then suddenly there was this disconnect for you. It was like, but wait a minute. I don't know this. I don't have this. This tune, let's just assume it wasn't a tune you knew. This isn't a me to express, And so you were able, and your mother was wise enough to not get you off track from bringing your music.
That I had such a visceral experience to what you just said, because you're right. It was a complete disconnect when this teacher put this music in front of me, and the music became something that I was supposed to play correctly or execute correctly, versus this living, breathing thing. And then when I went home and I was taught this is how it works. This is, and I know system sounds weird, like systematic or something like that, but I remember I was talking to AI yesterday. I can't remember what I was asking it to do, and it was like, no, don't stop. Don't give me a recipe for how to do this. Stop with the how. Tell me how it works. Give me the first principles of it first. And then I can start finding out what is my way into it. Mm-hmm. And you're right. One of the things that is so beautiful about a lead sheet or a fake book, and I think it's so interesting that it's called fake. Mm-hmm. Faking it. And as I'm saying this aloud, I'm thinking, how can I fake the rest of my life? Because this was such a moment of liberation for me to realize that that it was just the melody is the only thing that defines. It's not true. I mean, in a piece of classical music, I don't want to go on and on and on about that, because what we're talking about is how do you bring the music? And and what you said, I thought was so powerful. If we think that music is that thing that's written on the page, then bringing it forth, first of all, we're the slave to it.
Right.
Versus when you have a lead sheet, which is just the melody line and the chords, it opens up. First of all, the whole thing has been taken apart. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
here's your carburetor and here's your gas line, and then you can start. Oh, carburetor, gas line. Maybe I could build something else out of that. Do I actually have to? So, and then you start to be like, oh, so if that's a melody and those are the what if I put a different melody with those same chords? What if I put different chords with that same melody? What if mean, it starts to open up, and that is the beginning of one form of improvisation, which eventually became, when you take it and take it and take it and take it and take it, it becomes jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, when people have come to me to learn to play jazz and didn't have that initial skill, it's been very hard for me to figure out, well, then how do I take them from, I need to take them back to where I started, these two simple threads that can be interpreted so many different ways, and that therefore can give immediate access. And this is, you hear me talking about this all the time. I hear these words come out of my mouth, and I keep wanting to bring them alive. My whole life is in this concept that when you can break things down to their simplest form, there is access at every point. You don't have to wait for your 10,000 hours. I'm sorry. No.
Well, you're talking about the alchemical principle, which is an embodiment principle of distillation, which is everything has to be distilled to its purest essence.
Huh.
And, and once it's distilled to its purest essence, then there's endless potential within it. It then has, because the essence is the life force, it is that which will then express in many different forms. And so part of what you experienced with music growing up was the essence of it. And your mother was able to give you, whether we call it the system or the theory of how that, or the operating principles is actually what I would say. The operating principles of how the essence expresses in this particular language of music. And so people can be brilliant players and not necessarily have that understanding. And I think maybe that's what you experienced with some people who came so to learn jazz with you, because it's a very different, the idea that I might, and I'm playing with John tomorrow night at a party, that I might be able to play Silent Night, and it doesn't really matter if I get all the notes just right or even get all the chords in the right place. But what matters is, do I express a heartfelt sentiment and experience through what I play? Because that's going to supersede anything else. It's not like there's going to be a music critic there who's looking for, or I'm being judged by a jury on this or that. And so I think there's that shift to realizing that music is a language of self-expression, just like words are a language of self-expression, or gesture, or how one carries oneself. It's a totally different way of thinking about music than it's what's written on the page that someone else composed that I now have to replicate.
Yeah, I love when you said the word operating principles. And as you were talking, I was thinking, and you were talking about playing Silent Night and maybe not playing the right notes. And I was remembering when I recorded take 5, and I made a mistake at the end, and I just kept going, but I loved the rest of the rendition. And so we released it, and I got a letter from Dave Brubeck, and he said, I thought that thing that you did at the end was odd, but then the more I listened to it, the more I liked it. And I was I was horrified, and I really was horrified and did exactly the wrong thing, which was write back and say, but it was a mistake. But that's right. I did exactly the wrong thing, which was focus on myself instead of Dave Brubeck wrote me a letter and
complimented you, and he said he liked it.
right. I mean, he was a very kind man. But I want to go to something else you said in the beginning before we started too, because we were talking about the experience of music and why we decided to call this Bring the Music and explore what it means to bring the music. Because you were talking about your husband is on a mission for you.
Yeah. So my husband is a professional folk musician. He's not a lot older than me, but a few years older than me. And our childhood and youth were very different. And I grew up in a very poor family, and very early in my life started trying to figure out how I was going to make it in life. So I was very serious and very studious. I was not listening to rock and roll. Not that you can't listen to rock and roll if you're and be studious too. I don't mean to exclude those things, but he's on a mission to educate me about rock and roll. So and the 70s, particularly the 70s music, and how powerful and the transitions that happened. So last night at dinner, he was educating me about Ginger Baker's drum solo and Do What You Like when he was with Steve Winwood and Eric Clapton, I believe, in Blind Faith. I think I got all that detail right.
I just want to say you had to look that up in the internet before.
I wanted to make sure I had the details right. But anyway, but he was talking about it, and you know, the value of it is he wants me to have a sense of what shaped him, and how for him his relationship through various musical artists at the time that he did see live, a lot of them, because he lived right outside of the DC area. He that how profound that experience of that music was, as well as what they were doing that was changing the trajectory of pop music and rock and roll, etc. And so I think that there's something about, none of us can have someone else's experience. We can only have our own experience. But we need a language to express our experience. And clearly for John, and this makes sense, he's a professional musician, music is the language that he's most comfortable expressing himself through. And music is the language through which he first, I think, encountered his depths. I encountered my depths through a different language, much more through a mystical, a mystical contemplative practice. And so to bring the music that's in us, we first have to encounter it. And I do believe by sharing our stories, because we're talking about the importance of story, by sharing our stories and our own experience of accessing our own inner experience and finding a conduit for expressing it, we do invite other people to expand their own ways of experiencing and to expand their language of self-expression. You know, when you said with the fake book that you you said you wanted it to have the lowest bar possible, so it's in C. I thought it's not that it's lower. The key of C is not lower. The reality is there are a lot of harps that, if you have a folk harp that has no levers, it's traditionally tuned in the key of C. But it's not the lowest bar, but it's what makes it most accessible to the greatest number of people. Now, I might be wrong on that. You might disagree with me.
Well,
but
I will say that what was important to me to have the lowest bar to entry is that it would, it could also be played on the piano. The same book could be played on the piano with no sharps or flats. When you look at the music, it's very clear when something is sharp or flatted. And that by putting everything in the same tuning, it's not actually in the same key because they're all, right, these different modes, and but that you would start to see the same patterns over and over again, so that playing each piece would actually help you to play each other piece, and you would start to see the patterns that to me are like in my face and I realize are not in other people's faces, and the patterns that help me to have a low bar to entry, meaning I don't have to think about the details in order. I have to think less about the details in order to be present and to be able to be self-expressed with what I'm doing. And that's what I was really looking for, because that's what I'm looking for in all of my life. Although I'm constantly assailed by the technical details.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what you just said and describing why you chose C is brilliant. Because if we let ourselves get totally immersed in one state of consciousness, in this case, the state of consciousness invoked by the key of C, then we do start to see the operating principles, the patterns, the commonalities. And I had never thought about C being the easiest key to read on paper, but I thought that makes sense.
Well, one of the things that's amazing, yeah, I mean, so first, don't get me started, but the harp actually, the musical staff is quite equivalent to the harp, especially in the key of C. Anyway, I won't go on and on about that. I'm trying to make something on that because it's very interesting to me. Carry on, Kathleen. Sorry.
But part of my aha, as you were talking about that, I thought, oh, okay, now I have a new sense of valuing why I might want to play all the Christmas carols between now and Christmas in C. Because not only is it going to help me play the carols, but I'm going to get something out of it that then if I want to put them all in the key of D next year, I'll be more able to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and so there was this, for me, as you were describing it, I said it's brilliant because you're offering something that isn't just about playing the tunes and making them accessible, but something about establishing a foundational, it's like the basic principles of math, right? You got to be able to add and subtract before you can divide and multiply, or before you can do fractions, or before you can do algorithms, or before you can do whatever else advanced math does.
Kathleen, did I mention I have COVID? That just went like way beyond where
okay.
Also, I just found out where the word algorithm came from, so now that's in my brain. And
oh no,
something else people should definitely look it up because it's very interesting. Anyway, so but you're right. For years, I've been saying to people, use the holiday season to learn how to do this skill because then it's going to be with you for the rest of the year. And of course, telling somebody to do something is not necessarily empowering them to do that. But you're right. There's a very sneaky thing going on in my head, which is, and I love that you're saying operating principles. You're right. I've been calling them patterns and shapes, but they're operating principles. And you're right. People will see them for themselves. And this is my sneaky way of being like, use these tunes you already know. Like when I was learning German, I was like, I wish I had a book that had the translations and then I was like, wait, Winnie the Pooh as a kid was my favorite book. I must have read it 100 times. And so I knew it almost by heart. And so I got Puda Bar in German, and in my brain was the English. And so that was how I started learning to get more fluent in German, which I've lost since then. And so people know many of these carols. And so it's a situation like that where you're playing something you already know.
Right.
And so by the end, sneakily, by the end of the season, if you do what I tell you to do and play everyone all the time, you will have an understanding of the operating principles of music, of harmony, of how to put arrangements together. And then we can have another conversation. Then we're on another level of conversation about improvisation and self-expression through music, which is like, how do I get that message out there?
Yeah. I mean, and we're going to have to stop here in a minute, but I think the operating principles, and part of what I just made a leap to in my mind is my online embodiment circle opens twice a year for new members to join. And so it's open now for people to join and begin on the winter solstice. So depending on what time of year you're listening, you can always join to start at the next solstice. But part of the value of the embodiment practices is you learn your own operating principles. You learn how you, specifically to you, how your body, your mind, your breath, your focus, your energy works to you. And you learn, once you have the capacity to track your own operations, so to speak, you understand those basic operating principles and the nuances to you, then you're able to move in a way that is truly authentically self-expressed. So I was thinking that for me, what you're offering, and I think this is what you offer in Hip Harp Academy, is that here are the operating principles, and let yourself experience the operating principles. Because once you begin to experience them and play with them, you find the music in you. You bring the music, you know?
I'm listening to what you say, and I want to now join your thing, and B, you should join Kathleen's thing, and then learn to play the music of your operating principles.
Yeah, and probably, I think you probably find this in the academy, and I find this part of the reason I started the embodiment circle is that the basic embodiment practices are so simple, most people aren't going to do them on their own because they devalue them. So when you start offering, well, there's about the pattern. I think we sometimes forget that the fundamentals are everything. You can't, without the fundamentals, the music doesn't get expressed. So anyway, that's.
I would now. I just want to go on and on about that. I want to bring up what Anna said, and then I know we need to go. But she said something great. This is really great. Thank you, ladies. Great to see you're feeling better. I am. Is there a way to get notified about these sessions? Good question. Honestly, I don't know if that's part of the. I don't know the answer to that. Well, maybe someone who's listening to this will know that there is, and then you can tell us, and then we can tell others. And thank you, Ina, for asking. I really appreciate it. Yeah. So I know we have to leave right now, but Kathleen, thank you. I'm so excited about this operating principle. I want to learn more about the circle, and I'm excited about this. So thank you, and will I see you next week?
Yes, we'll see each other next week.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for all your comments, for being here, for the comments you leave us afterwards, and for being part of this conversation of life.
Visit jungatharp.com for show notes, contact links, and to follow the ongoing conversation. That's Jung, as in Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst, and harp, as in the many-stringed instrument.